All right, everybody. The last time that you were looking at some things with this creating a new settlement project, you did step two. Um, Step two was focused on location around the world, wherever your settlement is, and also looked into some natural resources based on your location in the world. I hope that went well for you. I hope you were able to follow along and get things done as they need to be done. Um, I know that terms like equator and latitude, longitude, things like that, those are very, heavy geography terms, but they're in our human geography section because they're created by humans. They're not, actual things that you see visibly on this earth. And so because of that, I put it in our human geography section. So we're going down to step three today in this project. And step three now goes to some of these terms that have to do more with people. It is important as we study human geography to recognize that in our world, throughout the history of our world, and currently and in the future, people are different. Places have different people. People look different from each other, and that is all okay. There is nothing wrong with somebody who looks different, somebody who acts different, somebody who has a different culture or a different set of customs that they have within that culture. So as we talk about these different types of people today, the point is not to point out that people are different. The point is to learn how do we recognize different cultures and customs in places around our world, and what's the point of demographics. So that's something that we're really going to explore today. So first thing we'll do is review these terms that are here. You can follow along here on your screen if you have the step 3 document open, or if you've printed it, you can get that out as well. I would always encourage you to print it out as we go through these videos, so that if you need to add in some notes or anything like that with your pen or pencil, I think that would be helpful for you. So let's go through these terms that we have today. So step 3 involves the term culture, which refers really, if you break it down, culture is all about the things that certain groups of people do. Culture can be something that's very big. So there is definitely such a thing as American culture. But when you're really, really big like that, there's always going to be some people that are not really part of what you do. Just because it's in one group's culture doesn't mean every single person participates in that thing. But it's really what do people do in this group that they belong to. You can make it narrow and say your family has culture. You do certain things in a certain way, and your whole group, your whole family does it. You have culture. You have a way of speaking. You have a way of doing meals. You have a way of spending free time. You have a way of communicating with each other besides just language. You have probably your own family inside jokes, your own family funny stories you can tell. Those are all parts of culture. But what we're going to look at today is more now based on either a community or a region. A custom is part of a culture. A custom is going to be a thing that people do repetitively, a thing that people do every year or every month. Just it's a common thing that almost everyone in a culture takes part in. Now, in American culture, some of our biggest customs are holidays. If you think about Christmas, Christmas comes every year, and almost every American participates in the Christmas holiday. It's a custom. And even further than that, in Christmas, it is a custom that you get a Christmas tree. Most people get a Christmas tree, and it's another custom that you open Christmas gifts. Most families, most people do Christmas gifts. So it's one of those things that is just a very commonly done part of your culture, and it's a regular, recurring thing that happens every year, or at least every year. Demographics is a big word that really tells a big story as you look into what it does. So demographics is now the makeup of the people that you have in any given place. So you're going to do some demographics with two places. One of them is going to be a real place, and one of them is going to be your place. And so looking at demographics, you are able to determine what types of people live in certain places. So you're going to categorize people by age, by race or ethnicity, and by gender. So again, it's seeing the people that live in a place and figuring out what types of people live there. None of it is based on opinion. It is all based on just the facts and the numbers that we have. Density here refers specifically to population density. In science, though, when something is more dense or has a lot of density, that means things are tightly packed in. So if you think about the size of a bowling ball and compare it to the size of a basketball, they're pretty similar. But if you would cut open a basketball, it's almost completely empty. It's just air on the inside. If you would cut open or try to cut in half a bowling ball, it'd be very difficult, and you'd notice that the whole thing is very dense. It's packed in with stuff. And so we'll think the same way with population density. Ethnicity now is belonging to a certain group. Often that ethnicity, the group that you would be part of would be where you're from. So often when you talk about ethnicity, you talk about a person is Mexican American, or a person is from China, and so their ethnicity is Chinese, or things like that. But really, ethnicity is about what group you are part of, whether it's a country or not. Finally, the last word is population, which is really all about people. It's where the people live. So what you're doing today is you are comparing your new settlement with an actual existing settlement. And in class, we actually took that historical word off. So we're going to take that off here as well. Compare your new settlement with an actual existing settlement. This settlement could be a town. This settlement could be a city. This settlement could be a whole region. It could even be a whole state. In some cases, it could even be a whole country. But we'll talk about that in a second. So you're going to describe the culture, the customs, the demographics, the population density, and the ethnicity of the existing settlement. And you'll compare that information with information about yours. So let's walk through this. First, you're going to find information about a settlement. It doesn't matter really what it is, but it's got to be close to where yours is. So to show what I mean by what I want you to do for number one, I'm going to use my example settlement that's here in the Set 10 settlement map. So here I am. I'm in Western Russia, not too far from Finland. I'll zoom up just a little bit more so that we can see what's around here. Because it says find information about a settlement that is near yours. and you need to know the population of it and describe 3 things about its culture. So when I look at where I am, there are a number of towns that aren't that far away from where my settlement is. But I would not encourage you to use one of these smaller towns, because to find information about one of those small towns is going to be really difficult to do. Google has an incredible amount of information. They probably don't have that much information. Okay? So you'll want to find something that's decently big, so that it's easier to find that information. So now, as I look into this a little further, I see that there is a big city right here. It's called St. Petersburg. It's not that close, but at the same time, it's also a Western Russian city. And so it would be easier for me to find information on St. Petersburg than on, say, Kargopol, which is this tiny little place right here. If I wanted to, maybe I could look at what's the biggest one here. And even here, if I zoom way up, all right, is this a city? Sure, Onega. Is it big enough that it would give me good information? I don't know. It might. So if you want to use stuff like that, you could. It is totally your call, but just know that the smaller the place, the harder the information is going to be to find. So let's start this way. I'll try this Onega and see what I can find. So remember, what you're doing is you're going to first find the population of that settlement. Okay, I can find the population of that, so I'm just going to Google this Onega in Russia. Onega, town in Russia. Cool, what can I find? Well, I have found that the population is 21,359. Although it's got some different populations sitting there. Interesting. But right here it says the total population, 20,359. So I can use that in my answer. And then it also says, I'll type that in here, 21,359. All right. So then it also says to describe 3 things about that settlement's culture. So now that we're here, what can I read about? Well, I got culture and recreation right there on Wikipedia. So it says there's a museum. There's an ice field. There's a monastery. Not a whole lot of real cultural stuff. What you'd be looking for is, what do the people do? What are some activities that they have? What languages are spoken? Since this is a small town in Russia, it's almost a guarantee that they would speak Russian. But here's an example of why choosing a bigger place is helpful. There's not a lot of information on this town called Onega. Even if I go to a different website, there's not going to be a lot of, very good references to culture or other things. So I'm just going to switch this to St. Petersburg because that was not too far from where I am. And so now I can probably find some other things on this because the population of St. Petersburg is now almost 5 million people. So if I change this 21,000 to, almost 5 million, now I can do some more exploration of St. Petersburg, whether it's in Wikipedia or it's in an encyclopedia, National Geographic. There's many places that I can find information about the culture of St. Petersburg. So that is number 1. Number 2 says, what is a local custom? So as you find things about culture, what are some activities that people do that are very, very common in St. Petersburg in Russia? and then you decide, are we going to do that? So we're in Russia, we're in Western Russia. Part of Western Russian culture is this custom. Do I want my people to do it? You have to decide. This chart now is going to take a lot of your attention. So what you're going to do is use this chart to show the demographics of the real settlement. So you're going to find age ranges, races or ethnicities. I spelled ethnicity wrong. Races or ethnicities, and genders. So if I go to St. Petersburg, maybe I'll do, instead of just St. Petersburg, Russia, I'll also use the word demographics. And now I'll be able to find out what types of people live here. So I'll use Wikipedia as a backup plan. It might work, but sometimes there's too much information in Wikipedia. So what I can see is the population, but I don't see much about actual demographics that I'm interested in this site, and for now I'll just settle on Wikipedia, and that's fine. So here we have information on people's ethnicities, and we have percents assigned to those ethnicities, which is great. And if you have that information, are you allowed to just take it and put it into yours? Totally. You should. So I see here the ethnic composition in 2002 at least was 84.72% Russian. So what I would do is go to race ethnicity and I would put Russian. 87%. Now Russian is not a race. Russian is an ethnicity. Race refers more to your skin color. Ethnicity is more what group do you belong to. So keep that in mind. We got Russian, oh, it's 84%. Ukrainian is almost 2%, so I'll say that. I'll say Ukrainian 2%. And then I'll keep going, naming all these different things. Now, there's a lot of things in here. Do you have to name every single one? I would say no. Especially once you get down to those that say they're 0.0 something percent. You can choose, 5 or 6 ethnicities from a list like this. All right, so that's part of the demographics. Here's another part, and that is population. So on here, we're trying to find out what the ages of the people of this town are. So right here, it's tough to tell based on some of these statistics. There's usually better things that are laid out a little bit more clearly that help you to find the age range of your place. Now, one other thing you could try is, instead of maybe the word demographics, you could do the words population statistics. And when you look at population statistics, maybe you'll be able to find something more detailed for you. Moving on. So you're finding age ranges of people. You put in the range, and then you just say what percent ethnicities of these people and gender of the people that live in this place. Then you're going to take your sheet. You created a group of people. They should have ages, so you percentage out their ages. They should have races. You assigned that to them, and they should have genders. So you put all those things together, but just figure out percents. The way to figure out those percents is by doing something like this. So if I would say, what's the percent? What percent is 8 out of 20? Because you could bring up to 20 people. So you always divide by the total number. And then your number on top, which I forget if it's the divisor or I think it's the divisor. So this number is going to be, what number of the group is here. So let's say that you have one person who is from, I don't know, South America. So let's get to 8. You have 8 people from South America. What percent of your settlement has South American ethnicity? So you take 8 divided by 20, and you're allowed to use a calculator, totally allowed to use a calculator. So 8 divided by 20 is oh boy, is 0.4. 0.4 is not a percent. In order to make a percent, you have to move the decimal one place there, and one more place, and if there's another place, then you add a 0. So what percent is 8 out of 20? 8 out of 20 is 40%. So you need to assign those percentages based on the statistics that you have from your settlement. All right, so now we're going to head down to the last number here. It says, what is the population density of your settlement? Determine the population density of West St. Paul, and determine the population density of Brooklyn. To find population density, it's similar to calculating those percents. So to find population density, you take the number of people, again, let's say there's 20, and you divide that number of people by the area of your settlement. So if I would go back to the set 10 settlement, which is not wanting to show up right now. So if I would go to my settlement here, this is my shape, I would just click on that settlement, and down here I have these two numbers. One has that kind of shaded in box and it says 40.5 square miles. This one just has a box and it says 33.1. So this one right here is area, and this one is perimeter. Area means how many squares that are a mile, 1 mile by 1 mile, how many squares could fit into this shape. They're saying there can 40.5 can fit into it. So to figure out population density, you take your population and you divide it by your area. So if my population is 20, let's just say hypothetically, my population is 20. And my area, let's say, is 50. So we would take 20 divided by 50, which just so happens, again, that it's 0.4. Or what that means is 20 divided by 50 is 40%. I did that wrong. We're not finding percents. We're finding people. Ignore the percent for population density. Leave it at 0.4. What this means is you have 0.4 people per square mile. So your population density is 0.4 people per square mile. 0.4 people per square mile is very, very low population density. That's not crowded at all. That'd be like one person living on a humongous farm. You'd have plenty of space. You wouldn't have to worry about bumping into people all the time. Now, to figure out West St. Paul, that's going to be a much, much, much different number. So you could do it in two ways. You could either just Google it and see if you can find it, or you can do this math to figure out using the total population and dividing the total population by the land area of the city. So you can find that for West St. Paul, or you can just Google population density West St. Paul. And you're doing the same thing for Brooklyn, New York. All right, so there is your assignment. And I'm noticing that the video is 25 minutes long. So again, what I'm going to do is you should take about 15 or 20 minutes to work on this today, but then I'll give you another day to make sure that you have this all filled in. That way, if you have questions, you can ask your questions and you don't feel like you're getting behind on all your stuff. So do what you can in about 15 minutes. When 15 minutes is done, then stop. So don't do it anymore, and then just save it and wait and do it the next day. All right? So you can demonstrate your learning of demographics and people and all these things. Looking forward to seeing what you have.